Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Just a reminder before we get started today, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a chemist, I'm not your doctor, I'm not a pharmacologist, not a nutritionist or anything like that. Just some dude on the internet, and always take everything I say with a grain of salt, as well as if you ever decide to do anything that I talk about in these videos, it's probably a good idea to talk to your doctor first. So yeah, now let's get into the topic that I wanted to discuss today, which is, are there any safe anabolics? Sorry if it looks like I'm playing with something. I have my puppy with me today. So this is my second most enjoyed topic on this channel, and what I mean by that is I get the most amount of views for talking about pain relief, and my second most amount of views are for anabolics or things that grow muscle or in some way improve performance. So when it comes to anabolics, obviously anabolic meaning the propensity to build new tissue, specifically in this context it means more muscle tissue, preferably skeletal muscle, but unfortunately, as most of you know, if you're not careful, you can grow your heart tissue as well, which can lead to left ventricular hypertrophy or essentially asymmetrical growth of the heart, which can lead to a whole host of problems, including heart failure. And these are very serious topics, and this is why I do preface that I am not a doctor or anything like that. So, are there any safe anabolics at the current moment? Basically, the answer is no. We have safer anabolics, and we have more dangerous anabolics. The most dangerous one on the market currently would probably be trenbolone because of its whole host of side effects, as well as its neurological confounding effects, its psychological effects. It's been linked theoretically to beta amyloid plaque buildup. And second to that would probably be insulin, because insulin is dangerous in the context if you don't have food and you go hypoglycemic, you can die. It's rare, but it does indeed happen, and it's very dangerous, particularly because a lot of people who are new to insulin take it before they go to bed, and then they die in their sleep. So that's in terms of the most dangerous anabolics, but in terms of like what's the most safe? Well, typically speaking, what sticks around in the medical industry is typically what's most safe. Because like a lot of the, my dog won't stop licking me. I did just work out, so I must be licking my sweat. Do you want to say hi to the camera? Look, say hi to the people. Okay, she's got to be difficult. And particularly, the ones that have stuck around through years and years of research and trial and error and practice in medicine have been Anavar, some relevant forms of primobolan, but not really in the United States. That's more so in other countries. Testosterone, obviously, because that's the base male hormone, and decadurabolan. Actually, nandrolone, but everybody knows it as Deca. Those would be the quote-unquote safest with air quotes there. Obviously, all of them have side effects for anything from hair loss, obviously, to the heart growth I talked about, to worse cholesterol skews, to, even hypersexuality or low sex drive with decadurabolan. These are all very consequential side effects that can change lives. Acne is a big one. But in terms of severity of side effects, especially within medical dosages, so like dosages that they would be giving to people who need this medication. For example, Anavar has a very strong and potent ability to help people who have suffered burns, specifically children who have suffered burns. And it helps them to grow their skin back faster. I believe it helps with collagen synthesis. Don't quote me on that. That's going to be one of my new catchphrases is don't quote me on that. But with Anavar, or I believe it's oxandrolone. I'm using the colloquial terms for these things because I learned about them through, old bodybuilder guys, but their medical utilities are very interesting, and sometimes I don't remember the official medical names, so I apologize. In the lower dosages, it's well tolerated, doesn't provide any sort of toxicity that we know of, and it's orally available, which is huge because testosterone and decadurabolin are not in oral formulations. Well, technically testosterone is, but that's usually just for replacement circumstances because everything else, as you know, or all the other compounds that were made to be less androgenic than testosterone, at least in theory. And testosterone, you can't give it to kids who are suffering from burns. It's just not a good utility of it. Especially if they have they're going to get early growth plate closure. I mean, there's a whole host of reasons why you wouldn't give it to children, and the elderly, or women. Postmenopausal women are often prescribed, not often, but sometimes are prescribed really low dosages of decadurabolin because there seems to be a unique effect for joint health, and it allows for your joints to be able to have lubrication through. For a lot of people who have osteoporosis and arthritis, it can help to lubricate the joints. In theory, I have not seen any research on this. This is just something that doctors noticed and started essentially doing over time because it was showing to have promising effects. However, there are definitely androgenic side effects. A lot of women lose their hair. A lot of women start developing body hair, and it sounds... As a man, decadurabolin sounds so not androgenic that sounds crazy, but everybody's different, and everybody's reactions to these medications are different. So those would be the main four that have the least side effects. Now, I personally have seen people be able to take other substances like dianabol with relatively low side effects, such as their blood pressure did not go up dramatically. Now, to be clear, these people were taking extremely low dosages. These aren't people I know. This is internet anecdote, so that is a whole nother level of problematic. But just for the sake of discussion, they have decreased they don't have as increase of blood pressure as a lot of people would think. Their cholesterol skews do not change dramatically, and their liver markers stay relatively safe. There's always going to be outliers, so you can't take that with a whole lot of data behind it. But there was a reason that dianabol was utilized in the medical industry, and it's because it was very good at building muscle in people who needed it. Now, obviously, it put a lot of stress on people who needed it too, because some people get increases in cortisol from dianabol, which not a lot of people know about. Again, I'm using the colloquial term, what it was first patented as, and not the true medical name, so I apologize for that. Talking with my hands a lot today. Anyways, so that one I've seen can be tolerated fairly well. SARMs, in theory, were made to be safer, but there is a lack of evidence to show their efficacy at being safe. We have a lot more evidence for these things that were made in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s than we do for, name the SARM, Osterine, which was late 90s. And even then, we're starting to find out things about Osterine that we didn't know. We used to think it wasn't liver toxic, but now there appears to be some liver side effects, especially when you go into upper echelon dosages, which is what a lot of people would use, in the black and gray markets. They wouldn't be using healthy dosages. And it's also just important to remember that no medications are truly 100% safe. There's very rarely an innocuous drug, and what I mean by that is there's no panacea. There's always going to be a risk of side effects. That's why it's important to know side effects and interactions, because if something does go wrong, you'll know if it's normal and if you need to go to the emergency room and essentially what you need to do. So in terms of relative safety for medical practices, those are the ones that I would say. D-bol is not really prescribed anymore, and primobolin's not typically prescribed in the United States, but those are the ones that I would say are the most useful for medical practices, and I've heard of them being utilized with relative safety for long-term usage for like underground bodybuilders and stuff. Obviously, not legal. Don't condone that. I'm just speaking in terms of anecdote. People have utilized testosterone in higher dosages as well, but testosterone can come with a lot of side effects. But the caveat is that testosterone is naturally occurring, so theoretically or hypothetically, a lot of the functions and downstream effects that are supposed to happen, your body knows what to do with for testosterone. And so it's just important to keep those things in mind when you're, researching different pharmacologies. Obviously, this topic applies to a lot of things. So, for example, is there such a thing as a safe SSRI? No, because some people will take an SSRI and become manic. Some people will take an SSRI and get serotonin syndrome. There is no safe 100% effective drug. And it's important to keep that in mind. And everything has a law of unintended consequences where you're trying to do something purely good. I mean, drugs in general were made to be purely good. Nobody wants side effects out of something. You could argue in terms of the addiction crisis that happened with opioids that it was a little different. But for the most part, nobody wants side effects out of things. And so I think it's important to recognize that when these are being prescribed for people who need them, having this stigma of steroids, anabolics are dangerous and they should never be utilized. I think having the context that there are relative risks and some stuff is just safer than others. I mean, you can't live in complete safety at any given point. You're always going to, have to take risks in your life. Sometimes you're going to have to do something dangerous in your life. And if it's, between that and if you have this social stigma of steroids bad, anabolics bad, and you shouldn't give them to children because of all the side effects, it's important to note that things are not always that way, so to speak. And the biggest takeaway from all of this is, are anabolics safe? No, but anabolics are safer in very specific situations and with lower dosages. That's one of the biggest factors is how much are you taking? Because a lot of side effect studies on steroid users are steroid abusers, not people on TRT, not women with osteoporosis. They're people who are on grams or doing dangerous things like taking trenbolone or, things that are not otherwise considered to be safe. So it is important to recognize these factors in terms of what anabolics are safe. None are truly safe, but then again, almost any substance that you consume, even food, can have an unintended consequence. Some people can eat a peanut and die. Now, granted, that's a bit of an exaggeration. We still want the safest things, and I think if we continue to develop anabolics, we will eventually get to the safest factors, but there is a social stigma around it. I'm starting to ramble a little bit here, but the point is there is no safe anabolic, but there are safer anabolics. There's safer ways to use anabolics. And obviously, if you ever do anything dangerous or use anabolics, make sure you're talking to your doctor about it and not breaking the law in whatever country you may reside. But anyways, that's going to be about it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys agreed with my essentially top five list of testosterone, nandrolone or decadurabolin, primobolan, anavar, and kind of dianabol. Kind of. There is still a pretty strong risk profile with dianabol. However, those are the ones that I think are quote-unquote the safest, even though none of them are safe in any regard. And they're also developed from a time where things didn't have to be super safe like they do now. So there's just a different culture around it, I guess you could say. But I hope you enjoyed it. That's pretty much going to be it for me today. So I hope you enjoyed. Bye.